right, we're starting our sixth and final month of Exodus today. Can you believe that, by the way? We've made it through the 10 Commandments, love God, love others. And before we move on with this story, we're going to slow down today and look more intently at the Sabbath. It's a concept that is really misunderstood, really overlooked, and I think if we're honest, most of us in the room, we're either not doing it or we're applying it so sporadically or even so wrongly that we're missing the beauty and the benefits of it. And so we're going to pause our Exodus road trip today for a Sabbath pit stop. Speaking of road trips and stops, summer kicking off. You guys are already racking up the miles. A few of us were talking over the last few weeks about whether you're the kind of person that enjoys a leisurely road trip or not, right? Is your road trip full of frequent breaks, driving in the right lane? We'll just get there when we get there. Is that the kind of person you are? Or does everything I just said annoy you like crazy, right? Are you a stops equals delays kind of person? Listen, I just want to make good time. And so we're going to eat on the go. Kids, you better hold it. Every mile an hour I increase is 8 minutes I save on the overall trip, right? That's me, okay? I'm number 2. Well, 20 years ago, I took a road trip that I will never forget. And it wasn't because of the wonderful destination, and it wasn't because of the majestic scenery on the way. It was because the sheer logistical insanity of it all, okay? I was working at camp, and my good friend was getting married. And so a buddy and I used our entire time off for the whole month, okay? 48 hours to drive to his wedding in Michigan and back, okay? 15 hours there, 15 back. You do the math. Man, we'd have to come in hot, do all the pre-wedding stuff. Then there was the actual wedding, obviously. Then there's the reception and the party. We'd send our friend off, and then we'd drive through the night back to get back to work. It would be tight. It would be brutal. It would be stupid. And in order to pull it off, it meant we couldn't stop, like legitimately. We drove all night. We stopped one time for gas. That was it. We had our food. We had our snacks. We had our MapQuest all lined out, right? Remember that? We even came up with creative solutions to using the bathroom, okay? I'm going to leave it at that. No more details on that one. But I still remember the ridiculous things that I did at 3 a.m. as my buddy fell asleep in the middle of nowhere, Illinois, just trying to keep myself awake, right? Cold air, pumping, Mountain Dew, flowing. My Discman, right, was just blaring at full blast. And even, maybe you've been there, you start slapping yourself, right? You ever done that when it gets that bad? Yeah, that's where I was. The whole thing, the wedding included, was hurried, stressful, it was nonstop. As I crawled back to camp, exactly 48 hours later, with high-energy 8th graders waiting, I was anything but refreshed from my time off. I think life is a lot like that road trip. We have a hard time pausing and stopping, a hard time building in margins so we can slow the pace and take regular off ramps. Even when we're not working, don't we still feel the busyness of life? Like we're buzzing around from activity to activity, mentally scattered, bouncing from one task to the next, one screen to the next. We hate life's stop signs, hate life's layovers. Because listen, stillness and slowdowns, they're what? They keep us from getting to where we need to go, right? And so we pack our calendar and we stuff our schedule and we fill even our downtime with entertainment to keep us going. Listen, I could throw out all the stats about overworking, about being distracted, about sleep, about stress, but you don't need them because you live them. You know them, right? The very American air we breathe is productivity and efficiency and urgency. We live in a world that glorifies getting stuff done and having something to show for it, right? We have then trained ourselves, that's what matters, and that's where our significance is found. And you add into that this 24/7 constant accessibility, and we walk around with this bowling ball weight, this guilt that we're not doing something we should be doing, right? Like so much so, this blurs the lines between work and home and leisure. To tell me if this is right for you. It sure is for me sometimes. When we're at work, we feel guilty for not being at home with family and friends. And then when we're with family or friends, we feel guilty for not doing work, right? And we live on this treadmill of our tasks, and it divides us mentally to where we can't even be present where we actually are, right? Just me? Am I the only one? I think this is the air we breathe. And the result is that we're busy-bodied, busy-brained, multitasking machines. From the moment we wake up to the moment we hit the pillow, we're constantly on. Even on trips and holidays, right? We struggle to turn off. I mean, sometimes those feel like more hectic seasons, right? We need a vacation from our vacation. Our world wears busyness like a badge of honor. It says, don't downshift. Don't pause. No time to be still. You have to stay on. In the words of the great philosopher Dory, just keep swimming, right? Just keep swimming. What do? We swim. That's what we do, right? And no matter how you're wired, doesn't matter. This isn't a personality thing. We live restless lives. And listen, it's killing us, y'all. We are a people as a society that are chronically weary, chronically anxious, chronically scattered, rushed, and stressed. And as we try to cope with being overloaded, we're sitting there pleading, screaming, where is the off switch? Where's the pause button? How do I back away and turn off and reset? What if there was a better way to live? A way with regular rhythms of rest to realign our bodies and our souls and give us that refreshment and peace and freedom we crave. Let's turn to Exodus 23. We're going to see it today. Now remember the context. I said this 2 weeks ago. You have the 10 Commandments in chapter 20. Then chapter 21 through 24 is the application to ancient Israel of those, okay? Practical application in their specific culture. Okay, we got to understand that distinction, right? That's why we're not going to hit the hundreds of other laws, okay? I know, sorry to disappoint you. You wanted to hear about a baby goat being boiled in its mother's milk, right? You're going to explain that one today, Tyler? Did you see that in the passage? I'm not going there, okay, guys? That's for ancient Israel. Oh, but Sabbath is different. Sabbath is still for us. So here we go, starting with verse 10. For 6 years you shall sow your land and gather in its yield, but the 7th year you shall let it rest and life follow, that the poor of your people may eat. And what they leave, the beasts of the field may eat. You shall do likewise with your vineyard and with your olive orchard. All right, farmers, 6 years, get after it, right? Work those fields. Year 7, hard stop. No sowing, no reaping, no planting, no pruning, no organized farming. Take a whole year off. Whoa! God handing out year-long vacations? Sign me up, right? This is Sabbath on steroids here. But hold up, because we can't rush past how difficult this would have actually been. In an agricultural society, you don't plant, you don't eat. There's no government assistance. There's no deep freezes. There's no 401ks, and definitely no side hustle MLMs, okay? No passive streams of income coming in. Your survival depends on this. Can you imagine the anxiety and the fear that this could feed? Okay, well, why is God implementing such a radical move? A few reasons. Number one, verse 11, to let the land rest. As creator, he not only owns the land, he also knows the best way to use it. And like all things, he's designed it to need rest, okay? When farmland rests, it renews. Rather than depleting minerals and over time stripping the soil, it allows it to be replenished, right? So this is for their long-term provision, man. You might think in the urgency of what you need right now that you're cranking out harvest after harvest, but you're stripping the soil and you're depleting it of your future food, man. You're turning God's garden into a wasteland. And so do you see this principle here? Rest is restorative. Periodic stopping has a strengthening effect. Number 2, to feed the poor, that the poor of your people may eat. So whatever would naturally grow on its own that 7th year would be provision for people who had fallen on hard times. This is God's public food bank, and anyone could come and graze for free, right? Okay, well, once every 7 years, that's cool, but what about the other 6? Well, actually, not every farmer would start their field the same year. And so what you ended up with was a rotation, okay? Inevitably, there would at any given year be a number of fallow fields in Israel to provide for everyone. Do you see the remarkable compassion here from the Lord? How mindful he is of the needy, so much so that he's baking their provision into his radical economic plan. In fact, all through Exodus 21 and 24, we see how attentive God is to the poor, to foreigners, to women, to widows, to servants, to the fatherless. It is full of justice and protection for the most vulnerable in society. That is the heart of God throughout these laws, that they would not be taken advantage. See, Sabbath is not just about individual rest. It's about society flourishing. Number 3, to build their trust in God. This would require massive trust, right? Leviticus 25, they asked the question, what are we going to eat in year 7, God? Look at his answer. Verse 21, I will command my blessing on you in the 6th year so that it will produce a crop sufficient for 3 years. Verse 19 says, you will eat your fill and be satisfied and dwell securely. Did you see the logic-defying math here? Just like that, the manna principle. On day 6, there's extra, okay? So what's God's answer to that reasonable question? Me. He says, I'm your answer. My supernatural provision, Jehovah Jireh, has got you covered. The question is, will they trust him enough to obey? Enough to put the plow down, step away for a whole year. I mean, you talk about exposing where your real security lies, right? In our effort to provide for ourselves, or in my living God to provide for me? Now catch this. Maybe you've had this kind of moment in your life. Israel's about to get a pay raise, okay? Going from slaves in Egypt to nomads in the wilderness. They're about to get their own homes in the promised land. And how would they handle it? Would they enter a new slavery? A slavery to stuff and prosperity? A lust for possessions and productivity where they rely on themselves? Or would they trust the one who door-dashed daily bread in the desert for years and years, right? See, this is a guardrail God's putting in place so they don't get sucked into worshiping their harvest and they stay worshiping the God of the harvest. Which is number 4. This is implemented to set them free. No workaholics in God's people. This year of rest and space to cultivate other things ensures they are not reduced to mere workers in a field. You will not be defined by what you crank out. Your productivity is not your identity. God's saying, I saved you from that. You're not in that bondage anymore. Set you free. And there's another piece of freedom in the Sabbath year. This is crazy. Deuteronomy 15 talks about this, where all debts in the 7th year would be released. even if, including someone who sold themselves as a servant in order to get out of a debt and earn a living, okay, to survive, every 7th year they'd be required to be let go and lavished with resources on the way out. Like, can you imagine this? Every 7 years, a clean slate financially. That's drastic. It's almost unfathomable that a society could function like that, right? And if that wasn't enough, we covered this in Leviticus too. Every 50 years, so 7 Sabbath years, 7 sevens is 49. Then the 50 years, a double Sabbath year, the year of Jubilee, where if you had to sell your land, your family plot of land at some point because you were financially falling on hard times, that land would be required to be given back to you. It was a real estate reset. To keep generational poverty from spiraling down and down. God cares about our freedom. This is radical, beautiful stuff from a loving God. And this freedom, though, it isn't just every 7 years. There's 2 other 7s he implemented. Let's look at the annual calendar, verse 14. 3 times in the year you shall keep a feast to me. You shall keep the feast, number 1, of unleavened bread. Verse 16, you shall keep the feast of harvest, of the first fruits of your labor, of what you sow in the field. And number 3, you shall keep the feast of ingathering at the end of the year. You gather in from the field the fruit of your labor. 3 times in the year shall all your males appear before the Lord God. You shall not offer blood of my sacrifice with anything leavened, or let the fat of my feast remain until the morning, i.e., eat up the leftovers, okay? Verse 19, bring your best. All right, 3 major holiday seasons every year. Throw up a picture here of kind of their calendar. I grouped them together. There's 7 feasts in all. We covered that in Leviticus. But these 7 feasts were grouped into 3 seasons of the year, 3 different time periods. First, you had unleavened bread, which was kicked off by Passover, lasted a week, and ended by first fruits, okay? This is a 3-in-1 feast. And it was at the beginning of the year commemorating the rescue out of Egypt, the Passover, right? Number 2 was the harvest, which is also called weeks because it was 7 weeks, or approximately 50 days, where we get Pentecost, after the Passover, okay? And this commemorates God's shepherding and guidance through the wilderness and the giving of the law right here at Sinai. And the 3rd period was ingathering. This was in the fall. This is also called booths or tabernacles. This was at the completion of the harvest, and it commemorated God's provision and symbolically their being brought into the promised land. So 7 feasts spread across 3 seasons, showing a progression from Egypt to the wilderness to the promised land. Now, don't miss the point in all the details. Don't miss the amazing mercy in all this. God's telling his people to break from the normal grind, gather in community, and feast. Sing, dance, laugh, fire up the barbecue, and don't leave anything left over, right? I want you to remember what I've done for you, he's saying, and rejoice in my goodness. What kind of God gives holidays? What kind of God makes feasts mandatory and commands his people to celebrate? What kind of God does this? Yahweh, the God who sets free. At the heart of these rules is the heart of God, loving compassion. All right, from Sabbath years to Sabbath feasts to the Sabbath itself. Verse 12. 6 days you shall do no work. On the 7th you shall rest. That your ox, your donkey may have rest. The son of your servant woman, the alien, may be refreshed. The center of this whole design is the 4th commandment. 6 days of work, 1 day set apart as holy, as different for rest. We saw this a few weeks ago in the 10 Commandments. We saw this even before that, chapter 16, in the manna rhythm, this weekly stop sign of required time off. Okay, well, why is God repeating it then? Right? Well, part of it is he's expanding that principle into the feast and then into the Sabbath year, but that's not all, because he also repeats it in chapter 31, in chapter 34, in chapter 35. It's all in Leviticus, it's in Numbers, it's in Deuteronomy, it's everywhere you look. Sabbath is popping up. It's like he knew we would forget, and he wants to emphasize it. Hey, rest. Like, this is no side note to God. It is serious, y'all. So serious. In fact, I want to show you how serious with 7 things that show the Sabbath's significance. Number 1, we just saw it. Its frequency and position in the 10 Commandments. But number 2, there's an elevated emphasis. Look at the wording he uses in Exodus 31, verse 12. The Lord said to Moses, "You are to speak to the people of Israel and say, 'Above all, you shall keep my Sabbaths.'" What? Above all? This actually completes all that God has to say on Sinai before Moses comes down from the mountain. And this phrase, the Lord said to Moses, it's the 7th time that phrase is in this section of chapter 25 through 31. So catch that. After laying out all these laws, after talking at length for chapter after chapter about the tabernacle and all the work the people will have to do and all the work the priests will have to do, his last word, his 7th and final word, is reiterating rest. That's astounding to me. Okay, but number 3 that shows its significance, the penalty for not resting. Did you catch this? Chapter 31, verse 14, "You shall keep the Sabbath because it's holy for you. Everyone who profanes it shall be put to death. Whoever does any work on it, that soul shall be cut off from among his people." And then he says it again in verse 15, the death penalty. Whoa, did you see that coming? I mean, the Old Testament consequence here is intense. I mean, we would call that extreme. Why, God? Well, I think God's showing the ramifications in tangible form. Not resting does in fact lead to a deadly decline, okay? And not just physically and mentally, but it shrivels our souls. It takes us back to Egypt. To not rest is to die. But it's more than that. Because to disregard his word blatantly here is not merely a rejection of God's good gift of rest, it's to disregard and reject God himself, the God of rest. Okay, what I want you to see is there's a clear connection here between violating the Sabbath and violating commandment number 1, having other gods. This is reason 4. There's a connection to idolatry. If we go back to our main passage, Exodus 23, in the middle of feast and sabbaticals and Sabbath is this. Look at this. "Pay attention to all that I've said to you. Make no mention of the name of other gods." Interesting. God's tethering Sabbath to our worship. You see that? To disregard the Sabbath is to go after other idols. In fact, Ezekiel 20 makes it ultra clear. Hundreds of years later, Israel is being exiled, and God, look how he diagnoses one of the main issues. Verse 12, "Moreover, I gave them my Sabbaths, that they might know that I'm the Lord who sanctifies them, but they rebelled. They rejected my good rules, which lead to life." Okay, which good rules does he mention? Only one he mentions. "My Sabbaths they greatly profaned." Verse 16 repeats it. "They profaned my Sabbaths." Now listen, what was the next phrase? "For their heart went after idols," y'all. Look, he's spelling it out super clear. Verse 18 through 20 says the same thing. Mentions idols again. Verse 24 says it again. "They profaned my Sabbaths, and their eyes were set on their father's idols." There's a direct connection between disregarding the Sabbath and idolatry. If you don't trust Yahweh, then you're making another God your God. This is why over and over the prophets like Jeremiah, Isaiah, Amos, Hosea, they make a huge deal about disregarding the Sabbath. See, our time is a great indicator of our spiritual condition. That's what it's saying. Which is number 5. Sabbath is a sign of our sanctification. Exodus 31:13. Above all, you shall keep my Sabbaths, for this is a sign between me and you, that you may know that I, the Lord, sanctify you. Okay, our ability to rest, to stop and rest in God, is a sign, a distinct marker that says, I have a relationship with God, the one who sets free, the one who meets my needs. I know him. I trust him. Sabbath, let me say it this way, is a dagger to our self-reliance. It reorients us to this reality that it's not by my effort and my grit and my religious activity that I'm made right with God. No, he saves us and he sanctifies us by his grace alone. Listen, church, let me ask you, are you able to be still and know that he's God? Or are you busying yourself for other gods? Number 6, Sabbath is creation rooted. Like this 1 in 7 rest didn't start in Exodus. Y'all know that. Didn't come after sin entered the world. No, it was his original plan, the first week of creation. 6 days doing, 1 day being. Which is why Exodus 16 with the manna comes before Exodus 20 and the 10 Commandments. Like, think about it. This is good design from the very beginning. He could have left out Sunday and we'd go right back into Monday. Yikes, right? But that we might be refreshed, Exodus 23 says. What a beautiful word, man. Like, God literally wired our refreshment into the first week of history. In fact, the first full day, like the first morning that Adam and Eve wake up to is what? Sabbath. Can you believe that? Like, welcome to the world. Boom, a day off, right? But God, I haven't done anything yet. Yep. I want you to enjoy me before serving me. I want you to soak up my garden of grace. Be before you do. Do you see that tie to creation? I mean, this is why Sabbath still remains for us today. Like, we don't get to the New Testament and it's all of a sudden back to 7-day slavery. Not just the opposite. Jesus actually makes it deeper and fuller. And to mark that, the early church actually moves the day of their gathering from day 7 to day 8. Day 1. The day Jesus rose, right? Think about this. Jesus dies on Friday, okay? It is finished. His work is done. That's day 6. He's in the grave resting on the Sabbath, day 7. And he rises the morning of day 1 to usher in a new Sabbath, which is reason number 7. There's a redemption reality. It's not just creation. Sabbath is rooted in redemption too. Deuteronomy 5 will spell this out as it repeats the 10 Commandments 40 years later, telling us to observe the Sabbath, keep it holy. Day 7's a day of rest, not work. Look at verse 15, because he tells them why. He roots it in something different. You shall remember that you were a slave in the land of Egypt, and the Lord your God brought you out from there with a mighty hand and an outstretched arm, and therefore keep the Sabbath. Why do we Sabbath? Because he saved us. We're not in Egypt anymore. Sabbath rest isn't just a creation gift, it is a gospel reality. This is why Hebrews talks about Sabbath rest as a metaphor for salvation. Okay? It's why when Jesus says, hey, come to me, all you who are weary and heavy laden, I'll give you rest. What? Rest for your souls, not just physical. Right? That's the gospel. We can rest from trying to save ourselves. Jesus did all the work. We did nothing. And when we Sabbath, we proclaim that. And think about the inverse. If you can't rest, then I think you're struggling to understand grace. If you're going without ever stopping to just be, that's anti-gospel. That's anti-cross. Because even when our work isn't finished, our salvation is. And so we can stop and rest in that. By the way, when we do, oh, it whets our appetite for heaven, y'all. Oh, yeah. Because, yeah, Sabbath existed in Eden, but Sabbath is our existence in heaven. It's literally what heaven is. It's Sabbath. It's shalom. It's this wholeness of rest and provision and peace. Constantly. It is day 7 forever. That is heaven. That's what Jesus has saved us into. Do you see why we can't treat Sabbath trivially? Like, do you see why it's not a minor Old Testament footnote? It's not an optional dessert. Like, oh, I'll have some if I have room. No, God's making it very plain. This is essential, right? It's actually also why the vast majority of Jesus' conflict with the Pharisees is about what? The Sabbath. See, Israel, they disregarded the Sabbath. They ignored it. The Pharisees legalized the Sabbath, right? There's 2 ditches here. We can fall into the same kind of ditch. We can disregard it, or we can miss the heart of it altogether. Okay, Tyler, I get it. It's a big deal. You've convinced me, but why? Like, why? Why is it so important? I mean, besides the 7 things you just mentioned, like, why, right? Why does God care about it? I mean, besides the whole rest and peace and provision and freedom, I mean, that's great, but why? Is there anything else? I want to drive it home with the purpose of the Sabbath by saying this. Sabbath says 3 things for us when we Sabbath, and then we'll hit some practical application. Let's look at these 3 things Sabbath says. Number 1, Sabbath says, I need rest. Rest from the weary demands of labor and life. It's about recognizing our limits. When you keep your foot down on the puddle, catch this. You are essentially saying, I'm God. I can do this. I got this. I can accomplish this myself. I don't need the Lord. That is jolting to think about. And Sabbath invades that dangerous lie. It reminds us, no, we're not creator. We're not unlimited. We can't do it all on our own. I'm not God. And listen, we need that megaphoned into us weekly, right? Some of you get this. You know, I was not made to constantly be on. You've learned the hard way. You're like amening in your heart throughout this. But some of us are still struggling to emotionally, mentally, physically turn off, right? Like you're just carrying the weight of their to-do list every day, bouncing activity to activity, app to app. And I know what it's like to be there. And I spent years convincing myself it was necessary. It was essential. But really, it's just an unhealthy addiction. Like even on your day off, some of you can't be still. You can't rest. You're pacing around the living room. It's me. Right? Like you're just still busy-bodied. Maybe you're thinking, Tyler, you just don't get it. Like I have a job where I'm always on. Okay, I get that. Trust me. Or like I'm in a situation where I'm taking care of someone, or I have young kids, right? Or whatever it is. You just don't get it. I do. I get it. I get all the feelings of that if I put it down, I'm going to come back and the pile's only going to be higher, which is all the more reason why you have to put it down. A renowned ER doctor once said, there will always be a steady stream of sick and injured people. The need never goes away, so you must go away. You must have the discipline to go home and rest so you can come back tomorrow. Close the screen. Turn off the notifications. Recharge and come back stronger. And that takes radical effort, right? Like just personal experience here, this is not a one-bullet battle. The jungle of life with its encroaching vines keeps coming, and you have to keep beating it back. Every year, Lauren and I sit down and we spend hours reevaluating our rhythms of rest. Annual, monthly, weekly, daily habits. Where are we pushing our limits? Where have we been lulled into distractions? Where are we not being present? How can we reestablish boundaries for the sake of our joy? Because this is for your joy. This is for your good. God wants you to be refreshed. Check this quote out, because if we don't, this is a little startling, but it's true. Wayne Muller writes, "If we do not allow for a rhythm of rest in our overly busy lives, illness becomes our Sabbath. Our pneumonia, our cancer, our heart attack, our stress, our accidents create forced Sabbath for us." Yikes. I don't like that quote, but it's true, right? The stakes are high, and that was just physical effects. It's not even talking about our soul. But on the flip side, look at what Dr. J.R. Briggs says. "I have yet to find a burned out person who practiced Sabbath religiously." Okay? Rest leads to restoration. Stopping makes us stronger. Pausing enables our purpose. And so Sabbath says, I need rest. I'm going to recognize my limits so I can receive his life. Number 2, Sabbath says, I'm not what I do. We can rest from striving to build and maintain a false identity. Sabbath severs that cord between what we do and who we are. We're not our output. We're not our skill set. We're not our paycheck. We're not our Instagram likes. Man, we need to hear that, because it's so easy to get sucked into our activity, this good thing that could be used for the glory of God. We hijack it into using it for our glory, right? Like, man, that dude sends emails at 5 a.m. Wow, she crushed that project. How does that woman do it? She just does it all. And our pride begins to get stoked, right? Sabbath slices into that and says, put it down. Put aside the praise. Put aside the approval. The need to manage your image. Put aside that performance-driven identity. You are not what you do. God set you free from that accomplishment idol. And in return, he's given you an identity far better, his identity. So do you remember 2 weeks ago when we saw the 4th commandment, there was a 2-part command. Do you remember this? We said, remember the Sabbath. That phrase means stop working to rest your body, turn off. But in that second phrase, keep it holy, was about stop working in order to worship, to renew your soul, to turn on, okay? It's a Sabbath, it says, to the Lord. And this is where a lot of us struggle, right? Like I've talked to some of you about it. This is where Sabbath really breaks down for you. Like, yeah, I didn't work. Yeah, I came to church. But what else is different about the day besides not working and not going to Chick-fil-A? Like, what else is distinct? What else is holy? What else is setting this apart and actually stirring your heart, recalibrating it back to Jesus and helping you love him, like reorder that love to put him back in first place? What's doing that? What's spiritually restoring you? Yeah, gather with the church, but like also get out in nature. Read. Write stories. Fill your home with praise music. Eat a meal and eat it slow. Make art. Open your house for fellowship. Come to our prayer gatherings. If you work with your body all week and you're wiped, then take a nap. Or rest with your mind. Read. If you work with your mind all week, then rest by moving your body and get active. If you work around people and your job is highly relational, consider some solitude on the Sabbath. Vice versa. Disconnect from schedules and screens. It is about slowing the pace and feeding your soul. How can I commune with the Lord deeper? That's how we fundamentally reset every Sabbath. I'm not a human doing, I'm a human being, right? Sabbath says I'm not what I do. I recognize my idolatry. That leads to receiving his identity. Okay, last, number 3. I trust God. That's what Sabbath says. I trust God. I'm resting from the anxious weight of controlling life and the chaos that brings. We've already seen it. It's a radical declaration of trust in the Lord. My messages can wait. My task list can pause. Nothing is so urgent that it must be done. In fact, what must be done is actually releasing those things to the Lord, right? So if you struggle to stop, or if you struggle like to trust the Lord with these things that are so pressing, a good habit, start your Sabbath by offloading the most pressing, most anxiety-filling things on your to-do list or on your mind. Like, that's first thing. Kneel, pause, and hand them over one by one to the Lord in prayer. Such a good practice. One of the incredible things about Sabbath, maybe you've thought about this before, is that our God doesn't need it. He's still working. Sabbath is like him reminding us, hey, while you rest, I don't. And I can accomplish way more than you can. So put it down and trust me. I mean, you talk about killing the idol of control. Sabbath jackhammers that sucker. It shouts, the Lord is my shepherd. I got everything that I need. Yeah, but Tyler, things are just too pressing. I am on call. I'm covering for coworkers. I'm working 2 jobs. I'm a single parent. My quotas are through the roof. People's lives are at stake. I'm needed. I got young kids. It just doesn't stop. Tyler, my house is a wreck. No, there's too much to do. I get it. I know all those thoughts. Trust me, every Friday for me is an all-out war to lay my work down. Look at Exodus 34:21. 6 days you shall work, but on the 7th you shall rest. In plowing time and in harvest you shall rest. In other words, at the most critical, busiest stretches. Tax season. Finals week. Down a coworker. Sick kids. Toddler potty training. When in those seasons, we can still find time to fence off hours and say, Lord, I trust you. I trust that when I'll return to my busyness and my activity, that you'll give me what I need. That in fact, my work will be more effective, more creative, more efficient, because my body and my mind will be more rested and more clear, and my heart more at peace. To in the end, I'll be able to get done all that you have called me to get done, and so I'll lay this down. When I do this, what I have found is that is exactly what happens when I honor the Sabbath. Oh, the peace that floods my soul. The calm in the midst of the chaos. Yeah, the wind and the waves of life don't stop, but my soul can be still. Sabbath says, I trust God. Recognize our insufficiency leads to receiving his sufficiency. Okay, let's recap. 3 rhythms of rest for our freedom. In the 7-year Sabbath year, we see this high-level, drastic break for renewal, justice, and mercy. Do you have something like that in your life? The yearly festivals, we see this annual holiday celebrations for joy, remembrance, and thanksgiving. And then in the weekly Sabbath, this regular stop for rest, recalibration, and worship, which is the core rhythm, right? Rooted in creation, marked in redemption, fulfilled in Jesus. So significant to the Lord. He does not want us to get sucked back into the slavery of our work and all the counterfeit gods that come with that. But instead, every single week, let's declare, I need rest. I'm not God. I'm not what I do. I'm defined by his work, not mine. And I trust my good shepherd. When we do that, you will find yourself amazingly refreshed, set free, full of peace from the one who needs no rest, but who loves to give it. There's our main point for today. In giving us Sabbath principles, the God over time sets us free from the slavery of nonstop lives, calling us to regular renewal by resting from our work and rejoicing in his. Where do you need rest today? Where do you need rest? Are you weary? Exhausted? Burned out even? Are you distracted this morning and divided mentally? Just no margin? Everything in your brain just keeps buzzing? Are you anxious in your activity? You feel overwhelmed and you're just struggling to release control to the Lord. I invite you to come to him today. Don't come to a rule. Don't come to a day. Come to Jesus. He's the one who has the rest for your soul that you need. See, the first move before making adjustment to your schedule and habits is simply to run to Jesus, to be Mary, not Martha, busy and distracted. Just sit at his feet and receive. Hear those words on the cross, it's finished. Maybe you have never done that today. May I submit to you, maybe that's the reason your soul is restless then. Maybe you've tried to spend your life working and performing and busily earning something that can't be earned. And this morning, Jesus is offering you it freely by his grace. He has the real rest that you're longing for. If you've never trusted in Jesus, call out to him today and say, Jesus, I need your rest. I can't get it on my own. I trust in your work instead of mine to save me. For us who know this rest, let's end by asking us some practical questions here. Are we walking in that rest? Like, are you Sabbathing? Is the God of time God of our time? Okay, so let's run through these. Are we Sabbathing? First of all, are we remembering the Sabbath by stopping work? Okay, do you actually have a 24-hour change of pace to break from your busyness? Or are you blowing through your God-given limits and staying on? Okay, if you are, why? What's underneath that? Is there an idol of productivity? Idol of accomplishment? Are you tying what you do to who you are? Are you wanting to maybe just escape? Maybe it's just, I got to keep constant activities. I got to keep my children constantly engaged and entertained because you just don't want to deal with life. Is it an escape thing? Why is stillness and slowness and rest hard for you? Maybe it's a fear and trusting God thing, right? Let's identify the cause, and then you can take action steps at a heart level with repenting and just running to Jesus. Maybe today you just need to tell Jesus, I'm struggling because I'm just trying to control life, or I have this idol. I need to lay that down. Run to Jesus. And then second, let's look at our habits, because I think we can create some better boundaries, church. Maybe you have to get creative because your schedule with work changes every week, or you work on a Sunday, or you have difficulty with health issues that keep certain things, or you're a single parent, and you need to get help. Ask your GC. Ask others, hey, help me figure this out. Husbands and wives, are you guys a team together in this? Dudes, let me talk to you for a minute. Are you setting the pace in your home as a husband in this? Prioritizing rest. Downshifting. Being intentional. Filling the home with that air of grace and slowness. Are you watching the kids so your wife can have pockets of Sabbath? Ladies, how can you help his rest offset his job work? There's different ways that we can work together. Are you stopping work? But the other piece of the Sabbath, are you renewing your soul worshipfully, right? We already talked about this being a hard one for a lot of us. I Sabbath, Tyler, but then it's still full of activities, right? Or mind-numbing escapes, and I'm just still buzzing on the inside. Are you doing or are you being? Well, I gave you some practical things earlier to help your Sabbath be distinct as holy. Think about it this way. What can you add in that's spiritually filling? What can you cut out that's spiritually draining? So maybe that's no news, no scrolling, no shows, no sports, no errands. Some kind of miniature fast during that day that draws a boundary. And I think many of you work 5-day work weeks, which actually provides a day 6 for you to do a lot of stuff that keeps your home running, right? That's the day to do a lot of those things so that day 7 can be more worshipful, more restful, okay? So that's a nice little template built in for you there. Okay, as the band comes back up, let's expand Sabbath real quick up and down. Let's expand it up. Question 4, do you apply Sabbath into holidays and larger carved out times for extended breaks? Is that a part of your planning, part of your life? How can you make adjustments there? Okay, number 5, let's expand that down. Do you apply Sabbath into moments throughout the day? What if 1 in 7 got applied to your everyday? Think about that. 1 in 7, it's a little over 2+ hours of wake time where you're changing pace, slowing down, being present with God or present with people. You put your phone aside. You go on a walk. You have family devotion. You linger after dinner in longer conversation. You think. What a novel idea, right? To think. You pray, like anything besides the things that you have to do to make life function. Do you have at least 2 cumulative hours a day where you're switching that taskless, busy-minded part of you off? If you're not, like that is a long-term recipe, a long-term pathway towards burning out your body and shriveling your soul. So I would encourage you, two quick things here on a daily level. Fence off the first 30 minutes of your day. Do the first 30 minutes of your day, are they doing or being? What are you discipling yourself in on those first minutes of the day? That's really critical. Second thing I'd encourage you is get ferocious about guarding your evenings. Evenings matter, okay? Like, what are you doing in the evening? Are you switching just into a second job, third job, fourth job still kind of on? Or are you slowing down? If your schedule is bursting every evening, that's a warning sign. Something I tell families too, by the way, if you're 4 out of 7 nights a week not having dinner together, think about it. Your trajectory is moving more towards being apart than being together. Now I get it, there's exceptions. There's different things that maybe your schedule has exceptions to that. It's not a automatic, but it's a good rule of thumb to think about. Okay, number 6, what's your relationship with your phone like? Oh, you hate me asking this one, but I have to, right? Do you put it down? Ever, right? This is contributing to your overload feeling. I would highly stress you think through this intentionally. What can you do to disconnect yourself from it? For me, when I get home from work, it stays in the laundry room for a minimum of an hour. Some days 2, 3, 4 hours. And when I do that, it is so freeing. So freeing. It allows me to be present where I am. And last, number 7. Let's consolidate this. Where is God prompting you to implement changes for your restoration? Maybe today you need to go home and pray and write some things down, and it's going to lead to a big reset in your life. Some keystone habits going to create an avalanche of good things for you. Maybe it's not some big radical measure, but maybe it's just these 1-degree shifts, right? A couple things just need to be dialed in. Maybe it's cutting out something. You need to say no to something. Maybe it's an adjustment and a boundary, something better in check. Maybe it's asking for help because you're overloaded and you don't know how to think through this. Maybe it's just a mindset shift, right? Because you've been stuck in that trap. Have you been in the busyness trap? I have before. It's an endless cycle. If you think you're too busy to change your busyness, it's a cycle, right? How can you get out of that? I want to encourage you, these changes, this effort that we're talking about, yes, rest takes effort. That effort, though, is not a new legalistic checklist. That's not what God's inviting us into today. Rather, he's inviting us into refreshment, y'all. Into refueling and renewing so that you're enabled to do what God's made you to do. That is what this is about, stewarding your calling and responsibility so you can be the mom, be the friend, be the granddad, be the coworker, be the missionary, be the church member that he's made you to be. Rest is restorative. Stopping is strengthening. Pausing is purposeful. Let's pray together. Jesus, thank you so much that you care about our rest. You care about our peace. You care about our provision. You care about our freedom. You are so compassionate. To think that you would write these rhythms into the very existence of creation, that you would mark this with your gospel and what Jesus has saved us into is astonishing. Thank you, God, that you love us so much that you will not let us go back to slavery. So God, we just confess this morning, we struggle to do this. Even when we nail it one week, we drift so quickly. God, we confess our idols that we drift into, our tendency to equal our work with our identity, all the things that make us good because we crank stuff out. Would you set us free from all those chains, Jesus, and allow us to enter the rhythms of rest you've designed us for. Thank you, God, that you are a different God, a God who sets free. Lead us in that freedom now for the sake of your name, we pray. Amen.